Today we're going to start on a beautiful duck. Always start with the thing that takes the longest time. Today that's going to be the duck. Now I have it's almost 6-pound duck, and for those who are asking, because for some reason my family thought this was the funniest thing in the world, me buying this duck, but I get my duck from Aldi's from Instacart. I'll leave a link below. So I have pat this dry and removed all the innards. I've also cut the neck. There's a long skin hanging, and trim some of the fat here. You could trim more. I'm just going to close mine up. That's what I'm going to do. Now here I have a shallow pan that has a grate here that I can lift out for the duck, but you could just use whatever pan you have. I am just going to season this with some salt and pepper. I do the inside of the duck liberally, and then what I'm going to do before I do the outside is I'm just going to poke some holes in it. The skin is really thick on this, and what this is going to do is just kind of allow the skin to crisp up a little bit. Sometimes I do this step, sometimes I don't. I'm going to do it this time because also I have a beautiful, delicious glaze that I'm going to put on, and I kind of want it to go a little bit in. So I'm making little cuts in the skin, not the meat itself. Now I'm going to go ahead and season the outside of this with salt and some pepper. I will link my pepper mill as well. This is my favorite gadget. I'm gonna move this over to the side, and then I'll show you this easy bourbon honey glaze that we'll put on top. Now for this delicious glaze we're going to get on top of the duck. Now the duck that I get from Aldi, it normally comes with a glaze packet. I throw that thing away. I don't know what's in it or how it tastes. So here we are. For this, I am going to use honey as a base. I also have some soy sauce. I have some bourbon. I have some leftover bourbon from my eggnog, so I've been quite enjoying it in some of my holiday recipes. If you haven't checked out my eggnog, be sure to take a look at that one. It's absolutely delicious. I have some garlic. I'll get in. Got a bit of thyme. I have some Dijon mustard. And then some olive oil. So we're gonna get that delicious honey glaze and get it on top of this duck. And it already smells so good. You are absolutely going to love this. Do not be afraid of duck. If you can make a whole chicken, you can make a duck. So this is going to go in a preheated oven, 350. I am going to let it go for a while, and then I'll start basting it toward the end. Over to the stove, the second dish on our menu that's going to take a little while to cook is going to be our green beans. So here in the pan, I have just rendered down some salt pork. You could also use bacon here. I'm going to remove it and I will add it later to the top. My grandmother just used to cut it in pieces and leave it in the green beans, so that is an option as well. Into this same pan, I've just large chopped a large onion. I'm going to let this saute for a few minutes before we get our fresh green beans in. Okay, the onions have cooked down a bit. I'm going to get some garlic in. I got about 4 large cloves here. You can mince it, chop it, whatever you feel like. This thing has just been so convenient for me, so I love it. These are really good gifts. These are things that sometimes your cooks don't think to get for themselves. But it's a good $10 gift that a cook would get a lot of use out of. Even a new cook who doesn't really know how to mince, this garlic press could be really nice. I have 1.5 pounds of green beans here. A lot of times I'll cut these in half, but since it's the holidays, I kind of want a beautiful presentation, so we'll leave these whole. But if it's your preference, go right ahead. And for those of you who were around last Christmas holiday, I mentioned that my dad left this pot and I'm still in love with it. He keeps asking it. I don't know why he pronounces my pot that way. I really don't know. I don't think he's getting this one back. I have some homemade chicken broth here. See how gelatinous that is, and it's still partially frozen. You could use some bouillon and water if you want here. You could also use store-bought broth if you have that. I love making my own because it's so easy, so convenient. There's health benefits to it, and I can make this taste how I want. So it's seasoned really well. So I'm gonna let this melt. I'm gonna make sure I got enough liquid to barely cover those green beans and then get a lid on. So it's been about 30 minutes. I pulled the duck out and I'm gonna give it the first baste. And then I am going to baste this every 30 minutes until it's done. Now that my broth has dissolved in here, it was half frozen, I'm gonna go ahead and season this up. So I have some sea salt. I use Himalayan sea salt. That is my everyday sea salt, but whatever your favorite is. I have some Cajun seasoning, garlic powder, and some onion powder. I'll have all your descriptions, all of the ingredients, everything listed in the description. I'll just give this a good stir. Bring this up to a simmer and put the lid on and let it cook until the green beans are done. 45 minutes to an hour is usually my sweet spot, but be sure to taste it for your preference. On to the dressing. If you've been here for a while, thank you. Welcome again. If you haven't, dressing is my favorite holiday meal to prepare, holiday dish for sure. So I have some butter here. I have some celery and some onion. Now you can argue with your mama, but I don't put bell pepper in my dressing. You can do it if you like. And if you do, hit the like button for me. And if you don't, still hit the like button. You're here. Thanks for hanging out. But I'm going to let this saute until it gets soft. I do like for mine to have just a little crunch to it, but it's a personal preference on this part. Meanwhile, I'm going to go ahead and crumble up the cornbread that I prepared. All right, let's complete my favorite part, which is the dressing. And I have my cornbread chopped up. You know, for the cornbread, I just have one pan here. Let me teach you a secret about this too. I will make a large pan of cornbread for my family, and then I'll feed them half of it, and then I'll save the rest and put it in the freezer. And when I want dressing, it is ready. So I have that. I'm gonna go ahead and get egg in here. This is a preference also. I know some people don't use egg. You don't necessarily need it. I like the consistency, which is why I do it. I have some more homemade chicken stock here. This time I am going to I want my flavors to marry here. So I'm adding some sage directly to the dressing here. Okay, that looks pretty good. I'm gonna go ahead and get this in the pan. The next dish up is going to be this bacon smoked Gouda corn pudding. It takes corn pudding over the top. So this is going to start with some melted butter. And then I have some maple syrup. Mix this a little bit. Then I'm going to put the eggs in one at a time. Or I'm going to try two at least. There we go. Over here, we'll go ahead and get our cornmeal in. Have some baking powder. And then I'll get a little salt in. like to kind of mix this around before I put it in with the other ingredients. We have a can of cream style corn. And then I've drained a can of whole kernel corn. And then some sour cream. That's stirred around good enough. I'm gonna go ahead and put in that cornmeal batter. Well, it's coming batter now, but the cornmeal mixture. Now there's smoked Gouda and bacon in here. The smoky flavors really, in my opinion, will complement that duck and the dressing also. Now I'm gonna go ahead and fold in that cheese and the bacon. So here's some bacon that I've crumbled up, and then some smoked Gouda that I just grated. I'm gonna kind of fold all of this mixture together. This is one that people will not be expecting. When you say corn pudding, it's delicious, usually really sweet, very good, but they will not be expecting this. You could also go all out here, put jalapenos in, that would be delicious as well. I got me a nice baking dish here. You could go with the 9x13. I like this pan for presentation. It just looks pretty. Okay, get this in the oven. Move on to the next dish. Now we're moving on to these rosemary cheddar biscuits. I have here some flour. I'm going to get in some salt, some baking powder. Biscuits are my favorite quick breads because the skill level, I guess it's medium, but they can be easy. You could do drop biscuits also. And because they're so quick to put together, you don't have to worry about rising with bread, anything like that. So I like to give a good mix to my dry ingredients first. And you know what? I'm gonna go ahead and add in my rosemary here. Just got this from the garden, so I chopped it up. You could use dried as well. Just be sure to scale your ingredients accordingly. Now, if you have a pastry cutter, you can do it. I don't have one. I just cut it in either with a whisk or my hands or fork, which is what I'm going to do today. And so I use softened butter on this to make it easier. And so basically I'm just kind of cutting the butter into the flour until it resembles coarse sand. Okay, so now we're going to go ahead and get in the buttermilk. It's okay if your hands are dirty. I'm going to put my hands in these biscuits anyway. And I do have my countertops disinfected, so they'll be ready for me to roll out my biscuits. So here I have about a cup of sharp cheddar cheese. Okay, I'm gonna prep my counters by putting a little bit of flour down, not too much. And I also always flour my rolling pin. Turn our biscuits out. I like to put a little sprinkle of flour on top and then form this so that it can be ready for us to roll out. I am being sure to add a little bit more flour so that it doesn't stick when I start to roll. It's a little sticky of a dough. Okay, that looks about good. off in a small pan, and we'll get these in the oven and baked up. For this dish, I have a pound of carrots that I've already peeled. I'm just gonna go ahead and cut the tips of these off. And you could do this in circles or diagonals. I like to do diagonals just because it gives me a nice presentation for this dish. But very simple dish. Again, big flavors. I'm all about that for the holidays. I like to surprise people with the flavors, but I want people to eat something that's familiar, and I want to make it easy on myself when preparing it. To finish up the carrot dish, I have some butter that's melted in my pan here. I'm going to get my brown sugar in. Then I'm going to go ahead and get in my bourbon. Let me just cook down some. Okay, now before I get the carrots in, I'm going to go ahead and add my salt and pepper now. Then I'm going to go ahead and get those carrots back in. Turn my heat up to a medium-high heat just until that glaze reduces. I almost forgot a little bit of Dijon. There we go. It smells so good. Thank you for joining me in the kitchen on this festive culinary adventure, family. If your taste buds are dancing, don't forget to hit subscribe, like, and ring that bell for more mouth-watering recipes. Until next time, keep spreading joy through good food. Merry Christmas.